Welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton Hawes, and today is going to be the first video of a new series I'll be starting where I'm doing book reviews. I've never watched book reviews on YouTube before, so I probably should have done that to research how to even structure these videos, but I'm just gonna kind of wing it and hopefully it will just be authentic to me. And if it's quirky and weird and different from other people's reviews, then so be it. Sometimes I'm a babbler, so if you don't mind that, then subscribe to my channel. Today I will be reviewing the book The In-Between by Hadley Blahos. I am not 100% sure how to say her name, but it's the unforgettable encounters during life's final moments. And I loved this book. Spoiler alert. This was one that we just read in my book club, and it had a really significant impact on me. If you've been here for a while, you know I am ex-Mormon. I deconstructed the entire religion and ultimately decided to leave. My husband actually left first, and he completely removed his records from the church. My records are still in, but I still consider myself ex-Mormon as I've left and don't intend to return. But with that, I related a lot to this book. I also had my mother passed away from cancer, and so there were a lot of attributes to this book that specifically connected with me and experiences that I had in my life. So I had a lot of emotional, I was going to say outbursts, just emotional experiences through reading this book. I kind of had to take it chapter by chapter, and most of the time when I was done with a chapter, I needed to stop reading and sit with it for a while and just sit with those feelings and emotions that I had. And there were a few chapters that I was able to just move on to the next chapter, and I was okay. I did cry in every chapter, but some of them were made a bigger impact than others. But we'll get into that. So this is like a little message from the author about the memoir. I'll just read it. It says, in this deeply personal memoir, passionate advocate for end-of-life care, Hadley Blahos shares moving stories of joy, wisdom, and redemption from her patient's final moments. Talking about death and dying is considered taboo in polite company, and even in the medical field. Our ideas about dying are confusing at best. Will our memories flash before our eyes? Will regrets consume our thoughts? Does a bright light appear at the end of a tunnel? For most people, dying will be a slower process, one that can be eased with preparedness, good humor, and a bit of faith. At the forefront of changing attitudes around palliative care is hospice nurse Hadley Blahos, who shows here that end-of-life care can teach us just as much about how to live as it does about how we die. Blahos was raised in a strict religious household, but began questioning her beliefs when she was still in high school after a sudden death of a friend. Pregnant at 19 and shunned by her community, Blahos enrolled in nursing school to be able to support herself and her baby. But nursing soon became more than a job. When she focused on palliative care and hospice work, it became a calling. The in-between, Blakehos recounts the most impactful experiences she's had with the people she's worked with, from the women who never once questioned her faith until she was close to death, to the older man seeing visions of his late daughter, to the young patient who laments that she spent too much of her short life, worrying about what others thought of her, while also sharing her own fascinating journey. Written with profound insight, humility, and respect, The In-Between is a heart-rending memoir that shows how caring for others can transform a life while also offering wisdom and comfort for those dealing with loss and providing inspiration for how to live now. Hadley Blahos, RN, is a hospice registered nurse, mother, and wife whose husband also works in the medical field as a doctor of physical therapy. Blahos started her career as a registered nurse at 22. As a hospice nurse, she now visits people at their homes while also educating and sharing stories about hospice care on social media, where she has more than 1 million followers. And it tags her TikTok, Nurse Hadley, and her Instagram, nurse.hadley. But yeah, this was a really impactful book for me. Something that I really enjoy, or at least how I understood what the in between means, and how I connected to the title and the author is, so the author grew up in a strict religious household, ended up leaving and didn't understand how there could be a God who allows like all of these horrible things to happen to amazing people, and how people who do horrible things, seem to just get away with those horrible things, if you will. And where I kind of connect to that statement, it goes significantly deeper than that for me and my religious deconstruction process, which you can find all over my YouTube channel. I spent almost 2 years deconstructing and leaving the religion and talking about it and sharing about it, mostly on my YouTube channel, and kind of used it as a place to just vent and brain dump all of my feelings and emotions and whatnot. But my understanding of what the in between is we know what life is. We're here. We know what we can see, touch, feel, smell. These kinds of things we know are happening. We don't know what happens after we die. Everyone has their assumptions and their perceptions of what happens, or their beliefs behind, ancient told stories and by word of mouth, and just growing up in different cultures and religions and backgrounds. Lots of people have different beliefs about what does or does not happen after we die. But in reality, we don't know it. We haven't experienced it, and we won't know until it happens to us. And something that I think is really cool about the in between is when the author is helping these patients on hospice, you're seeing them experience life during its final moments, and their health gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and they are slowly dying, but they're still here. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like they're still here anymore. A lot of people might see what's happening to them as, they're losing it. And there's also people who see what's happening and they think, okay, they're significantly closer to death than they are to life right now. And it's this in between, like they're still here, but they're not gone yet. And there are these patterns that have been shown time and time again through people who are dying slowly. And we're seeing, them experience things that we, as people who are very much so alive, cannot see and are not experiencing. And just seeing that some people are seemingly being reunited with their loved ones, or are just experiencing something seemingly beautiful and peaceful, while it doesn't prove that anything happens after the fact. It does bring a sense of peace that dying doesn't always have to be this very scary thing, in that where we might have a belief or perception that it is very scary and we don't want it to happen. It brought me a sense of peace in seeing that it doesn't have to be that way, and that we can experience peace and a level of calm and be reunited with those who have passed away, loved ones that we love, and even if it is just a figment of our imagination, that experience must feel amazing. Even if you just think that you're seeing, a parent that passed away, or a sibling, or a friend, or a grandparent, whatever the case may be, even if something in our brains, making us see something that's not there, it must feel great. Because if I thought I was seeing my mother who passed away, even if it was just my imagination, being able to have that experience where I could see her again and talk to her again and be with her in that way sounds so comforting and so peaceful. And so, though it doesn't prove that anything comes after we die, and I'm not saying that there is or isn't anything after we die, because I'm very much so someone who is just I don't know what I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. And I'm eager to learn where I can. And there's certain areas where we can only assume and we won't know until we experience it ourselves. And I'm okay with going through life that way, at least for now. Um, but it just felt very affirming that that's something that's happening to so many people, and that it doesn't have to be scary, and it seems significantly harder for those who now have to live without that person, but seeing that those people don't have to suffer and are seemingly happier in those states, and they feel at peace and they feel okay with what's happening. I don't know, something about that just eased me. And I feel like ever since leaving religion, I have had this fear of death. And in a way I still do, but I think it's less about the fear of death and it's more about the fear of what I could be missing out on, and what my loved ones could be missing out on, and what kind of things I wished I'd done differently or wished I made time for. And I think I'm more afraid of not living life to its fullest than I am per se of death. But yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of my brain dump and thoughts on what the in between means and how that impacted me. The closest experience I've had to being around someone during their end of life is with my mother, and it's kind of a touchy subject for me. I recently got off of my antidepressants, and I've just been feeling my emotions a lot bigger than I was when I was on them, but in a way that has been very rewarding. So I feel like the emotional side of me is just coming out a little bit more, and watching my mom pass away and was significantly harder than her actually passing away. I wasn't with her in her final minutes, but I was definitely with her in her final hours, and she couldn't speak anymore. She was on oxygen to remain comfortable, but her breathing was really rattly. And she would, like, for a while, she was writing on a whiteboard to communicate with people when she wasn't able to talk anymore. And then eventually she lost the energy to write on a whiteboard. So she couldn't do that either. So there weren't like a lot of words exchanged in her final hours. It was just a lot of listening to music and just laying with her and holding her hand and just praying. I was still actively a part of a Mormon church when she passed away, and I remember praying, like begging God to just help her to be comfortable. And well, I just didn't want her to be uncomfortable. And listening to her breathing and everything, I was like, she doesn't sound comfortable. Like, I remember that being really hard. And At one point, my mom helped her, or my dad helped her in the bathroom, and when she came out, I was helping her get back into the bed, and I just like, before helping her sit down, I just like held her and just hugged her, and I was just like, Mom, seeing if like she knew or could tell I was talking to her, and I was like, Mom, I love you so much. I love you. It's gonna be okay. And she was like, she said, I love you so much. And she hadn't been talking for a while at that point, so the fact that she like, you could tell she was trying so hard to like get that out of her. And I just feel like thankful that I was able to have even just that little moment with her. But yeah, she ended up passing away in the middle of the night after that. So I was asleep, and my dad didn't want to wake anybody up, so he just waited until early hours of the morning when we were getting up. She let us know that it had happened. So, and because she wasn't talking very much, I didn't see her or hear her talking about anyone in the room or anything like that. So I didn't have some of those experiences with her that Hadley, the author, had in this book. But that was kind of a reoccurring common theme amongst a lot of those stories. And so I didn't have, directly that same thing. I think the closest story in like the entertainment world, whether that's books or social media, movies and television, that I felt related to my mom's story the most, that touched me the most because it was so relatable, was the ending of the TV series A Million Little Things. So if you've seen that show, like, I don't want to give any spoilers, so I won't say like who it happened to or anything, but the ending of that show was very similar to my mom's story and circumstance. I do have someone very close to me who helped out a family member on hospice. She had a brand new baby at the time and was just running around juggling like her new baby, dealing with problems in her marriage and relationship. She had a full-time job that she was trying to juggle and helping this family member on hospice while a lot of other people were busy with their lives. And I remember it's really, really, really difficult and hard on her, handling a lot of that seemingly on her own for the most part. But with this family member, she called and told my husband Colin and I some of these experiences that she had with this family member, and how, there were seemingly people in the room, and how the energy, the room like felt heavy, and how like after it happened, the room was just like, then suddenly like felt empty. Just, I feel like energy can be a difficult thing to explain to some people. There's a lot of skeptics around energy, where I like to bring in the topic of physics and how energy is very much so a real thing, and how it's also involved in just like frequencies like radio waves or Bluetooth activity. Anyway, that's like a whole different topic. I don't need to make these videos a million years long, but you could be completely blind and not see anything, and you can feel different energies. The energy in a funeral is different than the energy at the club or bar, and like the energies in different spaces feel different depending on what's going on, what sounds are being played or not, the feelings and emotions of people in the room. And typically rooms full of people feel a little bit heavier, and empty rooms feel a little bit lighter. Tension describes like a heaviness, a heavy energy from emotion. So, anywho, feeling like the room was full of people when it was just two people in the room, and then when the person passes away, it feeling lighter. One of these questions that I have is, does the author suggest an afterlife, or does she leave it open to interpretation? I think she leaves it open to interpretation. I think she believes in an afterlife again after experiencing all of these things, but I think she isn't necessarily trying to push that on people and doesn't think that that's the only way. She very strongly believes, seemingly, that you can be atheist and not believe in an afterlife and live a your life similarly to how a lot of other we all live our lives, we all do it. Everything we all have in common is that we all die, and regardless of whether you went to church every Sunday and participated in all of these activities in different religions and cultures, or if you were an atheist and weren't involved in any of that at the same time, that in between moment at the end of life, when you're fading into death, you're not quite there yet, seemingly is the same for everyone. And I think she just wanted to share that it didn't matter what kind of life you lived and what your values were or what you practiced or believed in. It all came down to the same thing for everyone. And that's kind of what I believe as well, regardless of how my views have shifted and my feelings towards religion have shifted ever since I left the Mormon church. I still have believed that scientifically it made the most sense that it didn't matter what we did or how we lived our life, that it would end up being the same for us all. Again, none of that suggests we know anything about what happens once death actually happens. And there's no evidence beyond that point. But those final moments are interesting for sure to see those who, were atheists who are also, seeing a child that they'd lost or something of that sort. And even if they weren't actually seeing them, just having that comfort of people you haven't seen in a really long time and feeling like you can see them and talk with them and be with them again made me feel very emotional because I kind of hope that that's true. I kind of hope that my mom can see my marriage and my kids and my family and that she can watch my kids grow up, and though it's hard not actively having her physically here and getting to see her hold my babies and let my babies know who she is and have her in our lives, having lost her at such a young age and having to go through the majority of my life now without her moving forward is really hard. And having, my younger sister now who's with someone who has treated her in ways that she's always deserved to be treated, and being able to have a partner in life who loves her for who she is and treats her kindly and fairly and treats her how she deserves, and feeling like this is the person she's going to end up with, and not being able to have her mom here to meet him or be at their wedding if they have one and start their lives and have their kids without her mama is like, I know how hard that is on her, and I know how hard that's been for me. My mom luckily got to meet my husband and meet my mother-in-law and some of his siblings, and she got to be at my wedding. She did have to leave to go to the ER during my wedding. She was having some problems. I was having breast cancer at the time, stuff happened. She was traveling from another state, and anyway, and then by the time I was pregnant with my first baby is when she passed away. I was pregnant. So, as someone who's had a really difficult time believing that anything comes after we die, someone who loves science, I love physics, love astrophysics, love learning about space, I love neuroscience, how our brains work, psychology. There are things that lead me to believe that nothing happens after we die, and there's things that lead me to believe that it's fully possible that stuff happens and just doesn't involve the body, but definitely leans more, the evidence definitely leans more that there's nothing. But considering all of the circumstances put together, I really hope that in some way our loved ones who've passed away are still around. I don't know how in the heck I'm supposed to get through this life without my mama. One of the questions we talked about is how hospice care can help people pass peacefully. And like, if, you know, those of us in the book club who read the book, if we think we would want to be on hospice when we die, and I think everybody pretty much agreed that we would want to be dying peacefully at home and not in a hospital hooked up to all these things in a very hectic, chaotic environment would be preferred if possible. And I just really like the idea of being in a space where you're at home and comfortable to be who you are and have loved ones come in and out as they please and be with you and be in the comfort of your own bed and your own blankets and your own music and smells, if you like essential oils or candles, or in just being able to be where you feel most at peace when it happens. I feel like this was a really easy book to read, and it's also on Audible, and the author actually is the reader of this book on Audible. I worded that in such a weird way. Um, Most of the time, books are read by like a voice actor on Audible, but the author actually reads her own book, Butterfingers, which I really, really enjoy because I feel like when it's the voice of the author, the message gets across in the way that it was meant to a little bit better. So I really, really enjoyed that. There was more emotion when she's reading certain parts of the book. You can hear her voice start to crack up, which of course then makes mine crack up. And this book made me realize that I have a longing for connection, which I think I've known for a long time, but it really it really made an impact. I might even read. I wrote like a little journal entry after I finished the book because I just had all of these feelings, and I'm kind of feeling like maybe I'll want to read it so I can show you or just read to you what I was feeling at the time. I'm just gonna bring my little mouse over here, and my computer is just like right over here, and so I just pulled up my journal, and I'll just end the video with this and just let you see like the kind of thoughts that I had after reading the book. And yeah, so I'll just read this and in the video. So please, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Stay tuned. The next book I'm going to post about is The Alter Ego, over there, The Alter Ego Effect, by Todd Herman. My husband's reading it right now, and I even recommended that our friend uh, Stevie, shout out Stevie if you're watching this, I recommended he read it too, because it made me think of him, it made me think of my husband, made me think of a few people, but it's a good one. So I'll be my next review will be on that one. And if you're not into the book review types of stuff, I'm also going to be reviewing The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives season 2 when it comes out. I reviewed season 1, and that's on my channel. And I'll also be reviewing the next season of Love is Blind, which I think comes out on Valentine's Day. So I'm really excited for that one. So I have other stuff that I post about. So all right, I'm just going to finish with this. There are times when I feel utterly alone, even surrounded by people who love me. I know deep down that there is a whole list of people who care for me. Friends, family, acquaintances, but still, I often find myself feeling isolated. It's not because they don't care, it's because there are parts of me they'll never see. There are layers to my life, things that I've endured, things I've kept inside because I don't want to burden anyone with the weight of my struggles. In the quiet moments, I think about my mom, who is no longer here. If I could talk to her now, I would tell her everything. moments I fought to keep my head above water. I would tell her about how hard it's been, how deep the loneliness runs sometimes, even when I know I'm surrounded by people who would drop anything to help if they knew what I was going through. But I've learned not to ask. It's not because I don't need help, it's because for some reason it feels wrong to ask for it. There's a guilt that creeps in whenever I think about reaching out. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's fear, but it always feels like I shouldn't need anyone's help. In the quiet of the night, when everything feels heavier, I reflect on how much we've been struggling just to get by. Every day is about stretching the little we have, paying bills, keeping food on the table, making sure there's enough for the essentials. 18 months ago, we sold everything we owned, including our house, with big dreams of traveling the country in an RV. But life had other plans. Now we're down to the basics. No room for extra comforts or indulgence. Most of the small joys we've had, like new office supplies or even golf clubs, have come from my husband's work reimbursements. It's not much, but in a world where so much feels uncertain, we've learned to appreciate the little things. Hardest part, though, is the silent battles we fight just to keep going. My husband and I have spent nights worrying about whether we have enough to feed our kids, making sure that they have enough to eat while we go without. There are moments when our bank account is negative, when our credit cards are maxed out, and the weight of it all feels unbearable. I've cried alone in the quiet, wondering how we got here, and wondering if I'm failing my family. And yet, I keep it inside. I don't share it with others because it feels like if I do, it will be too much for them. They'll feel obligated to help, and that makes me feel icky. There's this nagging belief that there's always someone out there who has it worse than me. I know there are people out there who are struggling in ways I can't even imagine. I also know that doesn't change the fact that my struggles are real. It doesn't mean I don't have the right to feel heavy, feel like things are hard. It's this cycle that I can't seem to break. I feel the need to protect others from my burdens, to keep the struggles private, while at the same time I yearn for someone to see me, to understand the weight I carry. I want to be able to ask for help without feeling ashamed, but there's a part of me that fears asking will make me seem weak, like I'm not strong enough to handle it on my own. It's this internal conflict that eats at me, knowing I could use a little help, but not knowing how to ask for it. Sometimes I imagine that if my mom were here, she would understand. She'd see the struggles I face with clarity and love, and she wouldn't judge me for needing help. She would remind me that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to admit when life is hard. She would tell me that it doesn't diminish my strength. Somehow, I think she would remind me that even though there are people out there who have it worse, my pain still matters. My struggles are still worth acknowledging. I often find myself daydreaming about the life I want for my family. I want more connection, more love, more community. I want to expand our family, but the reality of it is, I can't afford it right now. I hate saying that. It feels like a defeat, like I'm admitting that I'm not doing enough. But the truth is, there just isn't enough. We're getting by, and that's all we can do, at least for now. But despite the financial struggles, the loneliness, the constant feeling of not enough, I still hold on to hope. I still believe that the love and connection can transcend it all. I hold on to the belief that one day I'll be able to take a breath without feeling the weight of the world on my chest. I'll be able to ask for help without feeling guilty. I'll be able to live without that constant reminder that things are hard, things are tough. And in the meantime, I'll keep moving forward. I'll keep doing what I can for my kids, for my husband, for my family, even if it means taking it one step at a time, one moment at a time. I'll hold on to the belief that it's okay to feel the weight. And it's also okay to ask for help when it gets too heavy. If nothing else, I hope that my story, my struggles, can help someone else feel less alone. I hope that by sharing my truth, someone else might see that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit when life is hard, and it's okay to not have everything figured out. We're all just doing the best we can, and sometimes that's enough. Hopefully, you enjoyed my private journal entry that is no longer private. If you relate, subscribe. If you read this book and you have any thoughts that you want to share about in the comment section below, let's totally have a chat down there and talk about the book. And I don't know. I have a longing for community, obviously, and that is, a really big reason why I'm doing YouTube and just looking for community. So if you relate to me or my life, or you have similar interests, or things that I'm like posting or personality wise or whatever, then stick around, and I'm excited to meet more people and chat with more people and build a fun, loving, and supportive community that can just laugh and have fun and have meaningful conversations. So if that's you, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. I love you guys.